Welcome to MonaroZone, where we cut through the noise and get to the real stories that matter to the people of the Monaro. Today, we're speaking with someone who's no stranger to the region's political landscape, Alisa Thaler, wife of Councillor Andrew Thaler. Alisa has been a part of this community for years, though she's often remained outside the public spotlight. Who is Alisa Thaler? Where did she come from, and what brought her to the Monaro? And perhaps more importantly, what does she see in Andrew? Why did she choose to marry a man who's been at the center of so much controversy? Andrew Thaler is a name that stirs strong opinions. His critics call him a misogynist, a troublemaker, even a menace. Some claim he has a history of bad behavior. Allegations range from using strong language to outright accusations of violence. Others say he doesn't actually care about the causes he fights for. But how much of this is fact, and how much is fiction? Today, we're asking the person who knows him best. But beyond the controversy, there's a bigger question. Why is so much attention being directed at Andrew Thaler when this region is dealing with serious, urgent issues? While people focus on attacking him, the snowy Monaro struggles under real crises. Over $1 million spent on strategic planning last year, yet Jindabyne residents are only now finding out their tip is full. The Kuma water tank disaster. 5 years of silence, no real remediation, no inquiry into who made the calls. The Makalago Road quarry, 3 years of toxic contamination and asbestos exposure with no public awareness. The abandoned cleanup of Bumbalong Road and Collinton, 5 years and still nothing. Why are these stories pushed aside while the focus remains on tearing down one man? And more importantly, what does Alisa think about all of this?
Alisa Thaler, it is a pleasure to have you here. Why don't we just get straight into it? Who are you, where are you from, and why did you come to the Monaro?
Hi, Chris. So I am Alisa Thaler, wife of Andrew Thaler, also known as Councillor Andrew Thaler. He was voted into the local council about 6 months ago. So I'm a mother. We have 5 children. And, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, all the good things that many women are. So I was predominantly raised in Canberra. I'm the third of 4 children. I have 2 sisters and a brother. And my mum still does live in Canberra, which is very convenient. We moved to the Monaro in 2006. Before that, I worked in hospitality through all of my 20s. So when I left school, I went to the University of Canberra to do a degree in tourism. And before that, I had an associate diploma of business in hospitality. So, the 5 a.m. breakfast starts. I loved it, get in there and do that. Move through the conferencing world, the large weddings, finish at 5 a.m. Obviously, you start later, finish later. But we used to do 70-hour weeks, no problem. It was good fun in hospitality. I did really enjoy it. I met Andrew when I was 30. We were at one of those singles dinners. I think that was a desperate and dateless, like a B&S ball. So I met him there. I went with a girlfriend who had her cousin with us. And so I met Andrew in the March, which was 19 years just gone now. And we got married the end of that year.
And was it love at first sight?
It was definitely like at first sight. Once we met each other, swapped numbers, etc., we just started hanging out from then. He was working... he had a contract similar to what we did later, based in Yass, and I was in Canberra. So we, the story just goes from there.
And what was it about him that attracted you to him? Was it his appearance or his personality?
Definitely confidence, personality. He's an ideas person. I got to that point where I'm like, looking for a husband now. And he's like, I'm looking for someone to help me do my things. So I did end my hospitality career and move into the scrap metal business, which is it's quite a bit, a lot of fun. It's a very outdoors activity, scrap metal, as you might imagine. Hands-on, get a little bit dirty. But no, I don't mind that, really. That's fine. Obviously, I can't do the heavy lifting. I don't have the capacity to drive the fancy forklifts and equipment, but I did learn the basics of it, which is fun. And obviously, more children you have, the less you have time for these extra activities. But yeah, I have no problem helping, and there's something required to be done now. A couple of years, actually more than a couple of years, I forgot. So 2015, we bought the solar farm in Singleton. That was built for the Olympic Games 2000. So we bought that. And when we, Andrew started the idea of the virtual net metering, which was actually a first for solar companies to do that.
And what is that? What's virtual net metering?
So as an idea, when for your house, you have your solar panels and you have your house. And so your electricity comes from the solar generation and it's right next to each other. The virtual net metering is that, so the solar farm hundreds of kilometres away is considered that energy is now your energy, but you're in the city. Yeah, so that's virtual net metering. That hadn't actually been done before. It's not something I would have thought up because it's not my specialty, but Andrew thought it up, did the contracts, worked out how it could happen between the different entities involved. Yeah.
And did you find a way to profit from that?
And so that's the idea. You get income. So the solar generation turns into money or power that then can be used for things. Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, your husband's been making a lot of waves recently. He's been in the news quite a bit. There have been quite a few allegations made about him for quite some time. Are you comfortable getting into some of those?
Well, Andrew is controversial about, not controversial, what he says people think is controversial. Sure. What did you want to say?
Well, let's get the big one out of the way first. A lot of people have claimed that he's a misogynist, that he picks on women, that he hates women. Do you have any comment regarding that?
It's a very big word. So Andrew does not hate women, but he will call out what he thinks is inappropriate or not right for whatever the particular person is doing. That seems to be a term that is thrown around quite a lot, particularly towards men, and I think it may be as an excuse to quiet them down. No, Andrew's got a lot of friends. He's got male friends, female friends. They're all different, doing different activities in their life. They're doing different things within the community. It's just the people who are the leaders of this community at the moment, there is a lot of women. So if he's going to point out what he thinks is not correct, it's going to be about a woman.
So I suppose in Andrew Thaler's defense, we could call him an equal opportunity hater. He hates both men and women equally.
So it's also the people he talks about is usually in reply, actually predominantly in reply. So if you're only starting to follow now, you might think, why did he say that? But if you look back in the past, you'll see what are the things that have triggered the incidents or the situation that is now being more noticed. I think that a lot of things are taken out of context, and shouldn't have to live in Nimitabel to know the context of everything, but it does help. So our friends understand a lot of the backstories of different things, and I'm referring to, in my mind, the particular large story, the Sydney Morning Herald, which was run probably like August or something last year. I can't remember exactly. Which was a very big hit piece against Andrew and against men in general about, and there was a group of women, and they weren't just any ordinary women really, a group of women within the community who worked with Sydney Morning Herald. They came to Nimitabel, they got all dressed up with their makeup and everything, took photos together, and we were surprised that they showed their allegiances of who's working together, because this is the Liberal Party, the National Party, councillors, local community members, all together to create a story, that their version, without context or backstory. And that seems to be that when we get the headlines, there's always context missing. There's always information missing. Now we have the rolling story, so that story based off that story, based off that story. So it's not so much the lies continue, although there are lies in there, but the untruths or the misconceptions or the lack of context continues longer. Yeah, we can't address some of those things, and we shouldn't. Yeah, we can't address everything.
There was a claim that he assaulted a woman in Nimittabel last year. Did you want to give some context to that?
So in May last year, that's the incident we're talking about, which was before this big newspaper story. We have in Nimittabel a yearly festival called the Steampunk at Altitude Festival, and it started several years ago. And about 4 years ago, we realised that the festival itself could do with a little bit more help with some of the organising and participation, and I was able to do that because of my background in hospitality and tourism, and it was fun. We had a good time doing that, and so that was with the Nimittabel Chamber of Commerce. Every year we expanded on what I did in particular, sort of the part that I played. So we got to 2024 and I played a really big role because every year it's easy to add something else to what you can do. And we actually were approached by ABC Backroads to include the festival in a show they wanted to write about Nimittabel. We thought that's pretty exciting, that's fun. So they contacted us and a few other community groups, and then through the networks they put together their storyline. And we, as a family, said, okay, that sounds fun. The kids have been on TV for various advertising and different things before. Andrew creates content himself. That was no problem. And when we checked to see who else was going to be in it, we thought, actually, no, we can't align our family with that particular other business because there's already been conflict in the community, and that wouldn't be true to us, is who we are. So we agreed I would be in it. And when I spoke to the producer, she said, whoever doesn't want to be in it, just say, they can just say, I don't want to be in it. And they'll just cut you. They just make the footage and they just don't include that person later. That's how it's cut. It's very simple. So I mentioned that to Andrew, said, yep, that's great. He made a post about that saying, if you don't want to be in it, don't be in it. But also, if we had said to the producer, if you include, which is basically Nimittabel Bakery, if you include them, we don't need to be included. You just run your story with whoever you want. That's fine. So that, and I mention that because that comes up quite a lot about what triggered it's actually the Birdies Cafe incident in Nimittabel, which is what you're talking about. They say that there was an argument over who was in ABC Backroads. That was not that. So there was a post that Andrew said, if you don't want to be in it, just tell them to go away, in Andrew words. Tell them to go away. You don't have to be in it. Just come to the festival, do it if you want. Okay? So festival happened. They came. None of the filming had anything to do with the incident. Okay? Absolutely nothing. On the Sunday, we had invited some friends to come and help do the judging because that was our role, to help organise the judges. And on the Saturday, because Andrew was not required for the festival because the children were older, we had other friends and family there. So he didn't need to come on the Saturday. It's not really his thing, steampunk. Doesn't mind me doing it, but it's not really his super passion or anything. So he went on the Saturday and did work. He actually went to Sydney and back, and he came back, and on the Sunday morning, he was around the village in the mornings to talk to people. He knows all the different people that come through, the showies and things, and to see his friends and spend some time with the children because they had some competitions they were in. So we had this thing for quite a while as part of the controversy of whether you either do or don't like Andrew, where it wasn't actually safe for him to go into Coomera by himself, and it wasn't safe for him to go into Nimittabel unless he was just doing a simple errand. Like he went to the post office back, no problem. because people would say things to him, or there was the possibility of an incident being created. And so some of those incidents turned into much bigger things that you would hear about, and other things we just let go because they're just people just being stupid and we just move on. So on this Sunday morning, when he went down the street, he saw his friends. Now, his friends had a dog, so they had to find somewhere to have lunch. And when you're standing at the Nimrod Hall, the closest place to have lunch is Birdies Cafe. So they went and had lunch there. So when he saw them, he went and said, "G'day, how you going?" Have a little chat. And so there was already a history between Sandra Drayton, which is the owner of Birdies Cafe, and Andrew. And so Andrew didn't ever go there because he didn't need the service. He doesn't like the person. So he's not going to bother. Never went in there. We're friends with the cafe neighbours next door. We would just go to the cafe next door. So when Andrew crossed the invisible line of that close to the Birdies Cafe, that triggered Sandra to come out and start filming, and it's all on video, what happened. But the result of that...
But for those that haven't seen the video, what happened that day, according to your interpretation?
So it is a tricky one because I don't like to say mean things about people.
No, I think it's important that people understand your perspective. Yeah,
so my perspective is Sandra was completely triggered by seeing Andrew that close to her building. He wasn't doing any harm or anything. He wasn't filming. He does create content. He does film things. You know, he might upload something from the festival, but he wasn't filming. He was talking to a friend. He had his back to the window, and so he didn't know what was happening in the shop. And Sandra did come out and with the camera rolling, spoke to him. Honestly, I can't remember words exactly, but they did spoke, and there was an altercation about whether he should or shouldn't be there, or could or couldn't be there. And Sandra did knock his phone out of his hand, which is then like assault, basically. It is assault. And so he kept filming, gave his camera to his friend and said, "Can you keep filming her?" Like, she was clearly agitated. Her husband came out, some other fellow came out, and it ended in, I think maybe the whole thing was about 3 minutes. An altercation between the two of them about a phone, his phone, and so there was some, pushing and shoving. They were touching each other, and he actually fell to the ground at one point. In the video, you can show them kicking him, which was, Sandra, the husband, and the other guy. And, he got up, whatever ended, and basically that's the footage.
And then he got arrested.
So that ended at whatever point it ended, and they called the police, and I believe Andrew also called the police for him being assaulted, and they called the police for whatever reasons they said. And so when I heard about it, it was about 1:30 in the afternoon, like straight away. And he said, "Can you come outside? Something's just happened." And so we went out with my son, and he said, "Can you take my keys and my wallet and my phone? Like, I've just had an incident with Sandra, and in the past, if there's been an incident, even if he says I'm the one injured, the police always come for him." So it was like that's why we wouldn't let him walk around by himself. But on this particular morning, we hadn't even thought of it and crossed the line of walking over to that spot. He was arrested within 2 minutes of the police turning up. The police did not ask for names or addresses or contact details of the witnesses who were standing there in front of him. He just saw a short bit of the video, and Andrew was arrested immediately. I'm sure that was around 2:00. I could be wrong. And we didn't actually even see the police make any inquiries of the other party. We certainly didn't make any inquiries of Andrew's side of the story. And he went to the police station, and our friends followed him. And so
just to recap.
Yeah.
Andrew that day went to talk to some friends outside a premises.
Yeah.
Where he commenced talking to some friends outside that premises.
Yeah.
Sandra then stepped out of the shop,
which was her shop,
was
her
her shop,
premises. Yeah,
and then assaulted him.
Yeah.
And then he got arrested, despite him being the victim of the assault.
Correct. So because there had been an ongoing history between Sandra and Andrew, he would say, don't go to that cafe because those people are actually horrible, which she just proved, right? And other people had said they're not very friendly in that cafe. It's like, well, we don't go in there, and we don't recommend people do go there. But obviously people do. It's a running business. They can do that. She was annoyed that Andrew came close enough to her business that she could then speak to him.
That invisible line you were talking about.
The invisible line, but it wasn't just go away, Andrew, I don't like you. It was filthy talk. It was repeated. It was loud, and people were shocked. It's like, why is that woman acting in that way? We better tell her to quieten down. There's kids around, sort of thing. That's what people said to me later. Like, what happened? That woman? I was going to intervene. Anyway, so he went off to the Coombe Police. I was in the middle of the festival and nothing really I could do at that point. But anyway, it was not what you want at the end of a festival, I can assure you.
But ultimately, when this case went to court, it got dropped.
So, yes, he, 110 days later, so 3.5 months later. So the original footage that Andrew had and his friend had was sent to the lawyer, and the lawyer gave it to the police, right, directly, because the police hadn't asked anybody locally for it. And the lawyer's submission on that particular day, the first day, which I didn't actually read, so I'm just ad-libbing, was what you say he has done, he hasn't done. Review the footage and you will see that. And they said that from the beginning. And so we did have the matter mentioned twice, which is where you as the accused have to go to court, and the prosecutor is there who represents the victim side, and then the judge. You talk about you're looking to see what the charges are, whether the charges are valid, and those sorts of things. So the first hearing, when we turned up there was like a posse. There was literally a posse. There was Sandra with her family and friends and supporters within the community that she thought she needed to rally as support. As a concept, the victim does not need to be there. The judge certainly can't see what's happening outside the court. So it was a little bit strange as to why she had that many people there. We did get heckled. Andrew and I, at that point, we were heckled because the security to get into the court, you have to line up and check your bags and things. So we did have to ask if someone, can you remove that man from our face, please? And a security guard did say, I'm responsible for you to make sure that you're okay today. And so when we went into the court, there were a few of the people there for Sandra, because we recognised them, like 95% of them, we knew who they were by name. Sitting strangely around us and how they positioned themselves in the court, and, little snide remarks that they said to us. And even on the way out, right in our face, it's like, security guy, can you get this guy out of here? Very, very confronting. We know exactly who that man is. He knows who he is, but I won't mention who he is now. So we had that twice. So what's notable about that is that very first time who turned up and the photo created, and that photo now turns up in media. So it shows that Nicole Overall, who is now the National Party, Birdies Taylor, who was National Party, Linda Summers, who is Labor Party in the council, Tanya Higgins, Labor Party in the council, Narelle Davis, independent, I suppose, with the council. And then you had other community people who, so Vicky Pollard, to the local New Advancement Group, and then Lauren Bab Brown, who they're in the newspaper article, all the people in the newspaper article. You can see Warren Catton in there, who featured in a different news thing recently. Not news, but...
We'll get to that.
Yeah. So all those people showed that they all supported Sandra as a lovely businesswoman who should not be attacked, because that was the narrative, right? This poor woman who was at work and got attacked. The worst case of that was that he walked into the cafe and he launched across the counter and strangled her. Like, that was the extreme version of what happened, not he was outside the cafe, she approached him, she initiated all the verbalage, she initiated the attack, all of that.
And the court agreed with your assessment of that?
The court agreed that there was not what they said he did, there was no evidence of, and therefore there was no case, and that's it. No apology, nothing. Oh, sorry, that's not true. Not there is an apology, but because it was like a false arrest, they should have investigated better at the beginning, that the process he went through created legal fees that he shouldn't have had to accrue. He asked for costs and he was awarded costs, full costs.
That's very impressive. So
that's actually quite unusual to get full costs.
So not only was he the victim, but he was awarded the legal costs because of the merits of his case.
Correct. So it shouldn't have happened. Shouldn't have happened. I believe there was prejudice on the day, prejudice before. It was the local policeman who did the arresting, and I said to him, Sean, you got it wrong. You're on the wrong side.
Because even just today, Nicole overall stated for the record that I believe he said prior to the election he had faced court on multiple occasions. And I believe she's probably referring to this case as well. Well,
that would have been, he did face court for that, obviously occasion. Like I said, there was two mentions. But even when I met him, he'd already had quite a few court matters or reasons to be at court. As a truck driver, you have restrictions on how wide, how long, how heavy you can be, how long you can drive for, start-finish times, kilometres, etc. And when you have your break. So when you... And a lot of those things are recorded. You've got the driver's logbook, the truck logbook. So they pull you over, they can check it. If those things are wrong, that can trigger a fine. And if you contend that fine, it goes to court. So he did have quite a bit of that, even before I met him. And he resolved some of those things by buying a better truck. It's got a good weighing system. What he carded, how he carded changed as well. But it does mean that he had a lot of court matters. We also had the previous matter with Warren Catton, which was...
Let's say Warren for the end, because that's more...
Sure. So there were other matters that went to court, and they were all either all not guilty, or reasons like I said just now. Yeah.
I want to get into what Nicole overall said today, because that's the big news today. She says that Thaler's presence is an attack on the integrity of local governments.
So Thaler's presence is because people voted him in. Okay. So people chose that he should be representing them. And when you look at how the voting works, you have the groups across the page and you have the people under them to create the groups so you can have above the line voting square. So groups like Labor automatically have the group because they can get their six together. So independents like Andrew needed to get the other 5 friends to make the group of 6. And then you can vote above the line. So I think Nicole actually said, or someone said recently, he probably came last in that. And probably came last and he only had 115 votes or something. So what they were talking about is you can choose to vote above the line or below the line. Yeah. So the above the line votes go to the head lead candidate, and the below the lines, you can vote individually for Andrew, you can vote individually for any of the people on the whole ballot paper, but you can vote for one of the other people in his group. And eventually that vote will go to that lead candidate. So he got 115 or something, what it was.
That's preference votes.
For his name, right? And then he got whatever the others were above the line. So that argument, he only got 115 votes. Well, one of the other councillors who was running as an independent got something less than 20 votes for their name, and the rest was all preferences, right? So it's a very poor argument to say, only 150 people voted for it, because that's not the way the system works. They were voting for him as a man, the name, not for the party. Yeah.
Another point that Nicole brought up was that there are 19 formal codes of conduct against Andrew. Do you have any comments regarding those?
So the 19 codes of conduct that I'm assuming she's referring to are what was written in the letter from the local government saying you have 19 codes of conduct, and they've been turned into public interest disclosures. And so they've all got acronyms. So they're called a PID, and the codes of conduct got codes of conduct. I think, sure it's PID, not PIO. Okay. With the code of conduct process, the person who makes the complaint tells the head council person and like the CEO. And the CEO then decides how they're going to deal with it. They're going to go, no, it's fine, or let's investigate it, or let's refer it, or whatever they do. So for none of those 19 has a single matter been put to Andrew. And in fact, he doesn't even know what all those 19 are because they were not given to him. And he certainly had no right of reply. And so what she refers to, it costs 10 to 15 or whatever $1,000 per thing. That is correct. If they go through the council-based code of conduct inquiry system, it costs that money, depending on how far they take it. If it's just a quick inquiry, it's nothing, or we can resolve it, it's less or more. I think 17 grand is about. They are not those anymore. They are now in the hands of the local government. Any inquiries are not council-based anymore. It's the local government is to do it, but they still have not. No, nothing has been put to Andrew. So they're stating it and repeating it like, yeah, he's guilty. He's been found out. Look at all these things he did wrong, but nothing's been proven or tested.
I want to confirm what you just said, that out of those 19 formal codes of conduct, none of them have been investigated, none of them have been proven?
Correct.
Yet they keep being recycled in the community?
Yes, and in the newspaper headlines. And that is what they do. So they create the story, they create the headline, which you do have a limited right, Andrew has a limited right of reply, but it doesn't matter because that's just going to be pulled up again later. And it's a little bit on hindsight, you're like, oh, that's why they did that. They did that then, so it could be used for this. And they did that then, so it could be used for this. And it's, yeah.
That's incredible, because if you don't have an investigation, you don't know whether that code of conduct has merit.
Correct.
Or it's just vexatious, or just completely made up. I know that...
And also that's not only not fair to Andrew, but not fair to the supposed victim, because maybe there is something that really needs to be resolved and it has not yet. It just sits there in limbo. And part of the system is the person who's making the accusation is not meant to be disclosed, and Andrew's not meant to say anything about them in the code of conduct system. When it gets moved to the local government, it's a different system. Yeah.
Because it's the assumption of guilt then.
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
Okay. So Nicole overall also said that Andrew was instructed to refrain from making comments that someone might find offensive. She quoted Andrew as saying that Andrew called a woman a big fat liar, someone that was not a fit and proper person to serve the community. Now, I'm not making any assumptions about anyone, but I think she and Andrew were referring to Tanya Higgins.
So we are living in a world that you cannot say certain things now that you used to be able to say in the past, that you can say, but it depends where you say it and in context. In this situation, it is definitely, let's get the bad guy because he's saying bad things, to say that he's the bad guy because he's saying bad things. But the overall of what he's saying is ignored, right? So he's saying this person is not telling the truth, and I'm calling them a liar. And he has gone on to say, and why I think this is so, which is much better than just saying they're a liar, right? And I think this is so. I believe part of the problem is it's a man calling out a woman. It's a woman who, through her own words, it's just been put back to her for clarity, which is not being clarified. And he's catching her out in lying. So which I actually believe is different than not telling the truth, because you can not tell the truth and not lie. That makes sense. Nicole is using it any advantage she can, and she's using her parliamentary privilege to mention these words in Parliament, which, as we pointed out about the code of conduct and, he shouldn't even really be there, is not true, right? Because whoever gave her that information about the code of conduct is not correct. She hasn't done her research properly. But she's trying to influence a wider audience because she can. So she is focusing on Andrew, but she's not focusing on the issues that Andrew is raising. And you think that is actually what members of Parliament and members in the council are meant to be doing. They're meant to be protecting the people, serving the people. That's the way people assume is what these roles are for. Yeah?
That's great, because that dovetails into what Nicole overall would say, that Andrew Thaler has accused council of a cover-up regarding asbestos management.
Yeah, he has for a number of years. So the problem with asbestos in our local area is not a new one, because Andrew covered stories of it inappropriately put in Polo Flat. It was inappropriately, like, asbestos mixed with other rubble was inappropriately put on the side of the creek right near our house in Niminabel. It's now being put, the allegation is it's in Mikalago, in two different locations under two completely different scenarios. And these recent ones in Mikalago, he has evidence that council knew for years and has not acted on it. And that is what is happening now. And that's with it. That's the link to Tanya, is that she lives in Mikalago. And it's her responses to the community asking questions that he's now calling out. Are they concerned about the word that she's fat? Is that the problem? Because you shouldn't say that about a person. Well, is she a fat liar? Does she sell big lies? Is she a big woman?
I'm actually quite supportive of Andrew in this case, considering that...
I think they're focusing on that because they can. That is not the problem. That is not the issue. They're just using it to find another little thing to hang up. Oh, there's another peg. There's another peg. Oh, he's an awful woman. So terrible. The radio guys, why should Andrew be international? Not international. Well, he has been international on TV. But why is he considered national news? Why is it that this horrible man exists in this small village and these poor women? Well, when that story ran, referring back to the Sydney Morning Herald article about this horrible man, I had so many women say, Andrew is not a threat to us as women. Those women are causing harm in our community and he's calling them out. That's the truth of the story. But how is that? It's like, can we write a counter article? It's like, well, I don't really know how that could happen. But that's what people said. We can't believe that those women are making women look bad and that they wrote that story or allowed that story to be written and have portrayed our community in that way because it was false.
I think Andrew's actually correct regarding the asbestos issue, and I think Nicole overall is very wrong regarding this issue. I myself have been to a property in Mikalego where there has been not a small amount of asbestos, but literally significant amount of asbestos found on it. And this poor farmer was pulled in under Section 203 and held as the perpetrator of the asbestos, not as the victim. And so I think Nicole is wrong on this case.
I think she honestly, either she hasn't done her research or she doesn't care. It has to be one of those two. Yeah.
The next thing she said was that she believed that Andrew was making a threat by saying that he threatened to hold council to account, which undermined public trust.
Well, I thought that actually, as councillors, that is the role of the councillor, is to make sure that the public servants who are paid to do the role of running the infrastructure of the community is done in an appropriate manner. There's quite a lot of barriers to what the councillors are allowed to do, who they can talk to, where they can go, and what questions they can ask. So there's been some comments as well about length of meeting, and you can't, as a councillor, just ask a general question about a matter of the CEO and get an answer unless it's in front of council. So if you want to know something about the water tank, they're not going to tell you. You have to formulate a motion, and there's a bit of a backwards and forwards and things to get. So there are a lot of motions up because there's a lot of issues that Andrew, as an independent councillor, and some of the other independent councillors have seen in the community, and they want answers. They either want a decision made on it, or they can see that a change is needed or more information, or whatever the motion is. And each motion takes time because you've got the person who raises it, and then you've got the counter and blah, blah, blah. It takes minimum half an hour. But there's a little bit, the transparency that you're talking about is not easy to get. Like, you might see there's a problem, but you can't see why. They can't see why the problem is there without asking the questions, which is why the council meetings can take longer.
Nicole then went on to say, this is not about democracy, this is not about free speech, this is not about public service.
So if she's talking about, you can't call someone big fat lies about, not about democracy, not about free speech, and that's the only thing she's focusing on, is, sorry Nicole, that's really boring, okay? Because the democracy concept is that every person who's an adult gets to vote. And you kind of think it's the public choice of who the best man for the job. And probably at the local level, that is the closest you're going to get to the best man for the job, because you got 11 people in total that gets chosen. And so a lot of the votes, people, like I mentioned before, they will vote for the individual they know that can do the job. And then you've got the party voters who will just vote for the party, maybe not the individual. Anyway, but that, with democracy. From the start to even before Andrew became the official councillor, some of the previous councillors and related council people were trying to work out how to not let him in the room. So he already had a ban, which he had said was not legal. So there's a difference between legality and illegal. No, it's not illegal. It wasn't legal. They did not have the power to ban him. They did not have, they had the ability to write the letter. They had the ability to pay for the security guard for 18 months in case he turned up, so you're not let in the door, but they didn't have the lawful authority like they thought they did to not let him in, which he knew for years. But it wasn't until he became the councillor, went, you know what, a lot of people actually support me doing this. I'm pushing ahead because I know they are wrong. So before he even became a councillor, they were conspiring, because that's what it is when a group of people work together against someone, to keep him out. So he overcome that legally, so that they worked out, yes, his lawyer said, yes, definitely you can get in, and the council agreed that they could get in. So the democracy is the person who is chosen to represent the community is allowed in the door. That's the beginning of it.
Let me play devil's advocate on the next section, which is, should an elected representative be allowed to call somebody a big fat liar?
Well, as I pointed out, that when there is evidence of the truth not being told, if you just say, she's not telling the truth about that, people go, oh, she's not telling the truth about that. But if you say, she's a big fat liar about that, you're going to get a lot more attention. And there was also, pretty sure Nicole said about, he's only doing it to get more attention because he's running in the federal election. Well, is she only doing this because she's annoyed that he's running in the federal election? Because Nicole and Andrew ran against each other in a previous election. And Nicole got in and the Labor didn't. Yeah. And then Nicole's not in because Labor did. Andrew was against him in all those elections. So she has a big motivation to say bad things about the bad man, right? And then to do it in Parliament, that's using the ultimate power that she has, is to do that in Parliament.
Finally, she said that Andrew Thaler is harmful to the trust in local governance. Do you think that's a factual or true statement?
What type of harm does she think he's doing? No, that's not quantified at all. I think he's pointing out some of the system problems of what's happening, and not just in our shire, but the whole idea of the PIO, which is where performance improvements order, and the performance improvement order. Again, like I said, they have the ability to write the letters, but how legal they are, what context they are used in, is being questioned, not only in our shire, but in other shires. And so the threat is, the more Andrew talks about everything and pushes the limit, exposes the system. And he's actually not the only one on their list of people that they're focusing on. Yeah.
Thank you for your thoughts on Nicole overall. Let's switch gears to something a little bit more personal. So let's switch gears from state politics to something a little bit more local. Recently, I believe it was 2GB, Ben Fordenham, called your husband a grub because he was somebody that laughed while their homes burnt down. Is that a justified comment?
That he's a grub? They've been saying that for a while. I think that the big media, which is what they are realising that the little media, which is like you guys and what Andrew is having more impact. So if they can discredit him for whatever it is, they're going to. That's what I see. So is he a grub for laughing at a disabled guy? Well, is that what actually happened? Their entire research is watching Andrew's 3.5-minute video.
I want to confirm, because
yes.
You were there, so you're a primary witness.
I was there longer than the 3.5 minutes. And I suppose it comes back to, if you can't say mean things about women, if you're not one, I suppose. Maybe you can if you are. I don't know. That's a whole different context. But you can't say anything about someone that's in a wheelchair because they're in a wheelchair. Unless you're in the wheelchair as well, or they have to be an able-standing man, which he actually can walk. We've seen him recently. So he has disabilities, I suppose, but it's like a judgment thing. If you can't say, I can't say that because you're not as able as me, I don't know, it's weird. So Australians have an idea that you say, oh my goodness, it was so funny what just happened, right? As a saying. And in the situation we were that morning, it was a very, not I'm going to laugh my head off funny, but it was a funny situation because this fellow he has himself in the caravan park in a tiny home, which ironically his nickname is Tiny. I just, tiny home, which was identified as unregistered, so you can't pull it on the road. And you have to have compliance for the different components because it had movable annexes and it had a ramp so he could walk up. And it had air conditioning because it's a building, and it had its own permanently erected, like a garden shed, no idea what's kept in it, next to it. And it was connected, plumbed to the water, and had electricity cord. There was no water pipe to take away wastewater, so we don't know what he was doing about that exactly. But anyway, the whole point was he'd been there for at least 6 months. And we drove past it every day because it's right on the main road. And we knew who this man is. We've known him for years. And he'd actually used to live on our road. He had a house which he sold and decided to downsize into the tiny home with his wheelchair life. And he had caused situations for us in the past. He would yell things out at us or film as he went past and generally try to cause attention towards himself from us, which we'd largely ignored, but that was his nature. Because he doesn't like Andrew. People would not realise that Warren Catton was actually on the ballot paper way back in 2013, running for the Christian Democrats or something like that. So like way back then, Andrew was running as well. And Andrew's like, this guy's running, but you need to realise that is he a genuine candidate? There is the talk about people who run who are not genuine candidates. Is he a genuine candidate? Can he actually, if he gets voted in, turn up for the community and deliver the product they think that the person in that role could do? And Andrew said, I don't think he can because I can see him as a man who's not well enough to do that. Okay? He was in a wheelchair way back then. He's a large man. I don't actually know what his health problems are. It's not my concern. So there was a long time thing between him and Andrew, and he would try to razz up Andrew deliberately, and there was a matter that actually went to court and it was found that Warren had it in the least exaggerated, in the most lied, and Andrew got charged and was arrested in public at a public event and went off to similar to the Sandra thing, went off to Cooma, came back, but this time it took a year and a half or something to go to court. That's behind the rumour of Andrew attacks disabled people. Is that incident, okay? So it was shown that Andrew was not guilty. He did not attack a disabled man or person. It's not disclosed sometimes. So that was the back history. So I was driving to our property, so we have two in Nimidabel between them, and there was ambulance and a fire truck at the caravan park, and I pulled over. Just what's happening? It's in our community. This is a big thing. It doesn't happen, obviously, very often. I pulled over, and just as I pulled over, Angie said, there's a fire at the caravan park. My fire notification has just said. I said, I know. I'm standing here looking at it. And it's Warren's cabin. And there's heaps of smoke. And there's the fire trucks. And he's like, well, I'll come down. So that's when he came down. And as soon as Warren saw him, I have a little bit of video. Anyway, he yelled out at Andrew, blah, 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 go away, swearing and carrying on. And he was quite abusive to me as well, but we don't want to put that on TV, right? We're not sharing that. It's later on, it was just showing, why are you still here? Why are you filming? We are filming because he already did stuff. And we're now proving that. Make sure nothing else happens. So Warren did call the police. Was never disclosed to us why he called the police. We saw him physically do it. We heard him say, I want the police to come. But the police never actually said what his allegations were to us. And the police said, you haven't done anything, actually. So, and why are you still here? So actually, we're still here because we knew you were coming. Because what are we going to do? Drive off and then you got to look for us? Or, silly, just wait an hour. But so the laughing part was, Andrew had in the motion, it's actually in tomorrow's, so in the March business meeting, to look into the permanent resident at Nimijabal Caravan Park and for them to be evicted because it's not an appropriate style of vehicle to be placed there, and particularly not outside the boundaries of time. So that exactly, and this was not actually public knowledge yet because it goes into the business paper, but it doesn't get given out to the week before, which was just a few days ago. So we're like, well, that's what the funny thing is. I was just saying this is not appropriate to be here, and it's not a safe type of structure, and it catches a light, right? And this bloke who's always been so horrible to us is the guy that it happened to. Yeah, that was the funniness about Australian humour. Funny thing is a funny thing. This is what's happened, and yeah.
So he's not laughing because he's in a wheelchair. He's laughing
despite
the guy being in a wheelchair.
Yes, despite the guy being in a wheelchair, and he was laughing at the entirety of the situation. He certainly was not standing in front of Warren laughing at him as such. We were not that close to him. It was, I'm laughing at this situation that it's...
And it seems like Andrew was justified considering that the caravan did catch on fire.
Look, the fellow has probably lost everything with the smoke and everything. And that's obviously a tragic situation for anybody who's going to lose things. But...
Finally, Andrew has been accused, and I know that this is crazy because Andrew's told me of his support for the LGBT plus community, but he's been accused of being homophobic, transphobic, furry-phobic.
Furry-phobic. Someone actually said he's furry-phobic, did they?
This is what I've heard.
Oh. So it comes back to what you can and can't say versus the reality of the world of what's actually presented in front of you. And we have friends who are gay, transgender. I don't think I know a fairy, to tell you the truth. I think that's a new different generation thing. If you put yourself in a position of power within the community and you perform well, it's going to be okay. But when you start, or there is evidence of you not doing what is expected and you're not following the guidelines, and if you are making accusations, which is what happened in this situation, and he's going to call you out, then that's pretty much it. And he's going to call you out with what is seen as obvious. Now, I don't watch all of Andrew's content, okay? I do watch a fair bit. I listen to some, but I do not watch all of it. He does say things that definitely things I don't say. It's not my nature to be a content creator. It's not my nature to do that. But is the message he was saying, again, lost in those 3 words, whatever he said, that offended supposedly this person? Or is it members of the community deliberately focusing on a few points and ignoring the entirety of the message, which is, why was that person in that position acting in the way that they did that created Andrew to go, is this person suitable for the job?
Why do you think so much attention has been focused on your husband when this region has so many real issues to deal with?
That is a good question. And I do think people need to think about that when they see headlines and hear stories. He is one of the, I think you'd have to be the most vocal person in the region. Interestingly, some others are trying to boost their own profile by talking about Andrew, not talking about their own issues. He's exposing a lot of happenings in the community that people would not know about if they did not follow, like, and subscribe. If they did not follow him, or if he did not say it, they would not hear it, or they don't understand the backstory. So often Andrew will he's giving the backstory, the comprehension. So people know that as a concept, the Bombala water system needs fixing, right? But do they know, I'm just making, how it's going to be fixed, why it's going to be fixed. I don't know.
I am grateful to Andrew because I think yesterday or the day before, he told the Jindabyne residents that there would be changes coming to the Jindy tip.
Correct.
From my understanding, for commercial customers, there will now be a load limit as of next week, from the 28th of March.
Yeah.
Only 1 meter cube that they can drop off at the Jindabyne tip, which is incredible when you consider that just 3 weeks ago, I'll quote the council, "Nothing is changing with the local landfill right now, but the work council is doing means we'll be ready when we need to close it down and build something new."
So yeah,
and that was just 3 weeks ago.
Correct. So the mayor, Chris Hanna, he said directly, I heard him say directly, 2 weeks ago they said everything was fine. So clearly then 2 weeks later it was not fine. So I don't know what they were looking at the first time, that it's wrong the second time.
And it's incredible because we spend over $1 million in strategic planning every year. And you'd think that rubbish would be one of those priorities to look at in advance.
Well, people are asking why did they spend a lot of money on the weighbridge. So these sorts of things, as a non-councillor, I don't know all the answers to, but it is a bit strange that they do have a waste department, they have a waste manager, and yet the waste situation was not managed in a way that was what people would expect, which is not be told 3 weeks after it was fine that it's now not fine. You'd think there'd be some sort of other notice. Yeah.
Now, I'm also very grateful to Andrew for bringing up the Kumul water tank victims. That despite this tragedy happening over 5 years ago, that there's still victims that have not yet been compensated, and their land has not been remediated for over 5 years.
We have a perception of what service you might get from government, or which is what council is, local government. Okay, so I met some of the people that live there. What happened? And I said, did someone from council come around and say, "Hi, I'm Sally. How did you go? What happened to you? Tell me your story. What's been damaged? How can we help you?" And they said, no, there was no Sally. I said, okay, so did the community rally together and swap each other's numbers and make sure everyone was fine? I said, well, on the night, there was obviously people milling around to make sure people were safe and fine. And the next day, the council came with their bobcat and moved whatever they did. But after that, the only help they ever got was when they applied and asked for it. And so if you had insurance, it was done through your insurance company. And if you didn't have insurance, some people were renting, or some people just didn't have insurance, you had to do it privately. And that's so without a Sally and without, they didn't start as a group of people. No one came in and said to them, how about you start? Because they're in shock. Some of these people had children who were traumatized for years. There was no whatever street association. It completely lost because council was not actively thinking let's make sure these people are fine. It was like a complaints-based system.
I'll attest to everything you said because I've met with some of these people. And it's just heartbreaking to think that if you didn't have friends in council, you didn't have insurance, that you got no remediation, no compensation.
Yeah.
5 years on.
But then also, because it was clear which houses were damaged, you could draw a little map. That's why I said, was there someone that came, hi, I'm here with the clipboard, No.
So I am very grateful to Andrew and the other independents for pursuing that.
Yeah.
Despite the gang voting no to remediate or investigate those situations.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the Mikilago road quarry as well, because this is potentially the biggest environmental disaster in our region. 3 years, council hasn't acknowledged that anything is wrong, despite heavy metals and asbestos washing up onto the neighbouring property. And the public having zero awareness of this, apart from what that very brave neighbour has put out. And if it wasn't for your husband and the other independents, I think that this story would not be covered at all.
So I think this is a story that is getting lost by the big media is not picking that up, for sure. With the other accusations that they're making about Andrew. So from the outside, that's the only way. It's not what people expect of the public servants. There's a level of trust in somebody. You ring up with a complaint, you think it will be dealt with. And so then when that doesn't happen, that's when people say, well, no, I need more help. But you shouldn't take 3 years. You have to ring your counsellor to get help. Yeah, it has been an ongoing issue. The ins and outs of the why, no, I can't say. Yeah.
And finally, back to asbestos. There is a 5-year-old cleanup that hasn't taken place on Bumbalong Road in Collington, where council saw some asbestos, fenced it off, and then left it there for the last 5 years.
Mm.
And no one's talking about these things. Imagine if someone dropped a bag of asbestos outside Chris Hanna's property. I'm pretty sure that within 5 days that someone would have addressed it. But because it's some random person out there, nothing happens.
Mm.
I
don't. Yeah. So again, I'm only commenting from the outside, but you would think there would be procedures in place to deal with that. If there was a complaint, it would be followed up. The local community did what they thought was right at the time, I'm supposing, but I can't really comment. Besides that, it's come out this week or the last week. Does it have to go to council before they address it? I don't know.
So look, I'm pretty straightforward. I don't mind wearing my bias on my shoulders for everyone else to see. I don't really care if someone calls somebody fat or if somebody misgenders somebody. But what I do care about are my rates. I care about transparency and accountability in government. And I'm grateful that your husband's speaking out for these topics. I think they're really important for this region. And I think when people attack him, it's often just done as a distraction from the real issues that are facing this region.
Well, some of the stories are based on headlines or what other people have said and out of context, like I said before. So people can either accept what it is and go along believing it, or they can ask questions, or they can talk to their friends. There's always going to be people that don't like Andrew. In fact, they avidly hate him, and that's the point. And there are haters in high places, which we have shown, and they are actually now exposing themselves as in doing that. That photo of the court shows you the long lineup of people that are willing to stand together to say that. And in fact, they were standing for Sandra, I suppose that was the implication at the time. But Sandra has been charged with, not charged because it's a different system, fined for selling illegal cigarettes. And that happened a couple of months later. And it is a strange thing that statements about how this very successful businesswoman has been attacked she does have a business, and so she is a businesswoman, and it is functioning, therefore she's successful, but is she an honourable person, right? In her other actions, that you are now standing with her in court and using her as the model person that no one must say anything bad about. I don't know. We're living in strange times of who can and who can't say what, and whether it's true or not. So who's calling out Nicole besides us about what Nicole said? Nobody else is doing that. I mean, it is only about Andrew, so it's relevant to him, but, you know, the person on the other side of the state only hears her version. They're just going to think, oh, there's that crazy guy. What are they going to do about him? Well, actually, that crazy guy is portrayed as crazy when really he's just an energetic person who's very vocal, who's pointing out all the crazy things that are happening in not just our community. And people are seeing it playing out in the rest of the state and going, hey, it's happening down there, but that's also happening up here. So he's creating a lot of awareness, and I don't think the politicians like that because it doesn't fit their narrative.
Thank you for your time, Alisa. It's been a wonderful afternoon. I'm sure we'll get lots of questions after this, so I hope you'll come back for another interview with us. Much appreciated. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So rise, dear Monaro, call the knot, demand the truth, dispel the doubt, for governance must serve the land, not crush its people with sleight of hand. The worst of crisis left to fester, no justice found, no old redress here. Shame on the gang who turned their backs. Shame on this council, mired in cracks. So rise, dear Monaro, call the mouse, demand the truth, dispel the doubt. For governance must serve the land, not crush its people with